All right, we started this module with linear expressions, which could be something like 2x plus 5. And then we got into linear equations, which could be something like 2x plus 5 equals 7. Now we're going to get into inequalities, where we might have an inequality sign. So just kind of some reminders: a less than, a less than or equal, a greater than, or greater than, or equal. And these are important, as you're going to see with graphs, because if we have something like x is less than 5, then you'll see on a graph how we graph these. Let me get another color here. Is a parentheses means it cannot equal 5, but it's anything less than 5. Where if I have less than or equal to, that sure would have been nice to have on the same line. Let me do it here. So if I have less than or equal to 5, now that becomes a square bracket, because the square bracket says it can actually equal 5 or less than. Greater than, of course, would be this way. And then with the greater than or equal, that way. All right. And so solving these inequalities are not too bad. There's just one thing that you have to keep in mind when you solve inequalities. So if I have something like, let's see here, 2x is less than -8. You pretty much do what you did with an equation, where you want to isolate the x, so you would divide both sides by 2. And so I get x is less than -4. And so my answer would be something that looks like that. Okay, because I have to be less than, and I cannot be a parentheses, a square bracket, because it's not less than or equal to. The only time that it gets weird, okay, is if you multiply or divide by a negative value, you have to flip the sign. Okay, that's the only time it gets like weird. And so if I have something like -5x is less than or equal to -55, anytime you multiply or divide by a negative value, anytime you multiply or divide by a negative value, which is what I'm doing, you flip the sign. Okay, so something you have to remember. And thus in this case, if I can get it to move down, I am going to have x is greater than or equal to 11. And I mean, these of course can get a little more difficult, meaning more steps. I could have something like 2x minus 10 less than 6 times x plus 1. But again, go back to what you learned with linear equations. So probably the first thing I would do is distribute. So I have 2x minus 10 less than 6x plus 6. Now I can add 10 to both sides. So add 10. And I get 2x less than 6x plus 16. I probably want to get my x's together, so I am going to subtract 6x. I'm subtracting, I'm not multiplying or dividing, so you don't have to do anything on that step with the sign. And so that's going to be what, -4x is less than 16. But aha, I am now dividing by a negative number. So I will flip my sign and I get my answer.